Just keep spinning. There we are. Welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. If you have not been to the pumps lately, the gas prices are rising. We're going to touch on that for a second and also talk about some of the other effects we may see as the invasion continues in Ukraine. There was an interesting interview with an athlete about the money he spent and what he could have done for the community. I think there's a whole other angle to that I want to talk to you about and what celebrities actually owe their communities. And then Netflix has this experimental show, and they are basically testing the actual theory that love is blind. I know that's right up your alley. Before we get to all of that, Mark, how are you feeling today?
Well, I noticed it is Wear Black Day in the wardrobe. We planned this out so intricately. I'm good. I got my Flonase this morning, and I got something else. I want to show you this. This is my surprise. I went shopping today.
Okay.
And I got this. You see this?
There it is. Nicely done.
I went into Autos. I picked this up, and I'm going to check it out. And this is right up my alley because there's 300 movies. So you can just read about a couple of them. You don't have to start to finish. You can skip over some. You can be, here. I'll skip over this one. The Navigator, 1924. Guess who's not seeing The Navigator? That would be me.
It sounds like a good toilet book.
Yeah. To End All Wars, 2002. I've never heard of that. To End All Wars, 2002.
That sounds good. It sounds like, I know that used to be a thing. You had to have your magazine or your book. Now we all have our phones. So I feel like the toilet book has gone to the wayside, but this seems right up that alley.
U571, 2000. I think our birthday boy, John Bon Jovi, was in that.
Oh, maybe. I remember that movie. I don't remember Bon Jovi being in it, but it was
Bon
a long
Jovi
time.
Was in it. Does it mention him?
Okay. It was a long, long time ago when I did that. When's the last time? We'll do this quick because I know you're excited to talk about Netflix and Love is Blind, and we're gonna get to all that. I promise you we're going to. Before, have you been to the pump lately?
I was to the pump this morning.
And were you physically ill as you walked away?
I was physically cold because it was windy and it was cold. And no, when I walked away, as I got back in the car, I was thrilled because it was warmer. But no, I think when I pulled up, it was 387.
Okay.
Something.
So
it was. Yeah, I just had a discussion about this either last night, just recently, about how it keeps going up and it's 8 cents higher and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. So I was braced for it, but it's still, when you pull up and you see 387, that's ooh. It's
pretty bonkers. Last night was the most inflated it's been in a long time across America. Prices went up. There was a report a while ago from gas industry experts that the price of gallon could hit $4 by Memorial Day weekend. They are now saying that you can expect to see that by the end of March. And the other one that was just blew me away, San Francisco has hit $5 a gallon. It is the first time an American city has ever reached $5 per gallon ever.
Okay, so here are my questions.
Go for it.
As you throw this in. Number one, we saw a couple years ago when the world was shut down because of COVID and gas prices plummeted because nobody was buying gas and they needed to get rid of it. So as spring is arriving, you've got the two sides to this coin. Number one, if you're just going to go someplace really close, you can walk, you can ride bikes, you can do things like that. So does it encourage people to leave the car at home and travel other ways? The other aspect is, on the flip side of that, it's easier to hunker down in the cold of winter. So now that it's springtime, even though you can walk or you can ride your bike, how many places can you really go and ride your bike? And if you're taking multiple people, then you can't really ride. So is it harder because as the weather gets nicer, is it harder to stay home? So we'll see how society and do we get to the point, like, for example, I was invited to go see Ace Frehley is playing, and of course you know who Ace Frehley is. He was the lead guitarist of Kiss,
Of
and
course.
he's playing in Harrisburg. What is today? Tomorrow night,
Okay.
and a buddy of mine's going. And now the question, when you look at ticket prices and you look at this and you look at that, and it's 4 hours, in the car, it's 2 hours down, 2 hours back. Do I really want to make the trip knowing that gas prices are, that much more? So does that start coming into play for the first time in a long time? Do people start looking at it and say, well, do I really want to waste the gas? I don't know.
Yeah. What the other part of this that's interesting is you kind of have two very opposing things going on right now. Not that people ever want gas prices to be high, but you clearly have the inflation and you have the gas prices going up. Steven just shared with us Turkey Hill on the Boulevard is $3.99 right now. Pretty bonkers. So you have this ongoing inflation. And like you said, do you want to try to save money? Do you question whether you should go or not? You also have worked into that, though. For the last 2 years, people are ready to go do stuff. They're ready to roll. They're ready to take that vacation maybe they didn't take, or go see the people they haven't seen. And so that juxtaposition of those two thoughts, it's going to be very interesting how people kind of weigh that out and decide, I haven't seen this person, or your concert's a perfect example. There are people that have not been to a concert since 2019. And so, do you weigh out the idea of living life versus saving, trying to avoid the rises on the pump? It's going to be very fascinating to see how people.
I also saw a study too, and maybe did you and I talk about this? Somebody talked about it. They were talking about rising gas prices and how much it was hurting Las Vegas. This wasn't today. This was, I don't know, another time the gas prices spiked because there were fewer people driving from LA, because LA to Vegas is 3 or 4 hours. It's a trip. So and one of the things that it was talking about is the difference in gas prices now between then to drive to Vegas and back is, for a typical person, is like $46. So these people that are going to Vegas to blow all this money and now are skimping because of $46. And that's one of the other aspects. When you're talking about, for me to drive to Harrisburg and back is a tank, less than a tank.
Okay.
So when we really look at it, say it's even $1 more a gallon. Well, how many cars I get? At the end of the day, what is it? $10 extra, $8 extra, 12. So
I guess
it as you dramatize it, you're like, it's a big deal. But when I'm looking at concert ticket prices, if the ticket prices were $8 more than I was expecting, and I really wanted to go, I'd still go anyway. But it is. What does it do to our psyche? Is a very fair question.
I think too, just your vehicle, how often you go, are you driving to work every day? All of those things play factor. Vicky says she saw $4.19 in Milton last night. It is now lowered to $3.99, 405 this AM. Where do you have a go-to? Do you have someone? I try to get it at Sam's Club as much as I possibly can. It's a little out of the way though, but that is my typical go-to.
Well, I feel like when you're at Sam's Club, you might as well get gas because you save. But again, it's one of those things. What did I just save? 60 cents? If it's 6 cents a gallon and I just it's not, this is corny. This is going to be the corny Mark thing. I try to get gas in my hometown whenever possible because I want to support the hometown businesses.
Sure.
Like when I have to drop off mail, I try to drop it off at the Venturesville post office because I know post offices are going to close as time goes on. And even as far as when I get a movie from Redbox, which you've heard of Redbox, right? You've never used it, but you've heard of it.
Never used it. I have heard of it.
But you can return them anywhere. So no matter where I get it from, I try to return it in Venturesville because I think it helps the hometown community, things like that. Now, one Redbox DVD is not a big of a deal. but I try to always get gas in my hometown if I can.
No, I've never thought of it that way. I don't know why. I just never associated like marts, like gas stores, like gas stations as like part of your hometown economy. But it's valid.
Well, I mean, it's not like obviously Turkey Hill is a national, but it's just the people that work there, and it's just that's the whole thought process.
No, and it's something that you can control too. Like you can decide when you get gas. Like you can get it, from your hometown before you actually need to get it if you want to. I'm bad at that though. I almost always wait until the light goes off, I look around, and that's where I usually end up. But
one of the stupid memes I read, I think this was a meme. The times at night when you're like, do I need gas? I just don't feel like it. I get it tomorrow. If you actually just do it, the next morning when you get in your car and there's a full tank, you feel like you're already ahead of the game.
You know what cures that though is anybody who has the automatic starters, because the car will not automatically start if it's low fuel.
Oh.
Yes. Okay. So if you're hoity-toity and you're fortunate enough, and like one of my vehicles had it, one of them didn't. But if you have the starter, I was going
to say someone's obviously hoity-toity if he knows this, because I didn't know.
So when you would hit it, if you were low fuel, it wouldn't kick on. So then you couldn't preheat the car or warm it up. So it is one of those things. Like if you have one of those vehicles, it is unbelievably beneficial to do it at night than it is to wait until the morning.
Do you really need the car preheated?
It all depends. Do I have, like, for example, if I have like my girlfriend with me or my mom or like someone like that, yes, like I like to try to have it preheated for them. And the other issue too is just like scraping the window. Like a lot of times, if you preheat it for like 5 minutes, then it's easier to scrape the window. Sometimes you don't.
I'll give you that. Are mom and or girlfriend whining if the car's cold?
No, it's not about whining. It's just the idea of like you have a button that'll do it for you. Push the button, I guess. I don't know. You get your idea of like laziness versus comfortable. Like just because people like to be comfortable does not make them lazy. Those are
Incidentally, speaking of that, I had a friend comment. My one friend who apparently watches the show said, "How do you take a nap without a blanket?" Because remember the whole.
Thank you.
And I was like, nap time, horizontal couch, it's over. And it's like I couldn't imagine napping without a blanket. So you have more support than I do in this argument, apparently.
Well, I appreciate that. So that's all it is. If you're at the pumps, obviously they're going to be higher. It's going to be higher and sooner than what experts expected. Like I said, we were expecting to see these numbers Memorial Day weekend if you read a lot of the forecasts from experts. And it is the first week of March, and we are already seeing them. So rebudget, do what you have to do, make the choices you have to make, I guess.
I wonder, and just thinking out loud here, I wonder if going into next school year, if school districts because you can only imagine how much money buses burn.
Sure.
Or how much gas buses burn. So therefore money buses burn. It's, yeah, I don't know.
It's all over. Do you remember when Amazon came out and they raised Amazon Prime? This was just like a month or two ago.
Yeah.
Remember that? They raised it like $2.
Right.
And there was this idea of like, do they need to do it? Do they all this? But I bet you a lot of it had to do with like not just inflation, but like upcoming gas prices, shipping costs, all of that stuff. So it is like I said, one of the ways this conversation could flow into, and it didn't really go there, and that's okay. But I said to you, like, there's going to be things that are very obvious that affect us because of the invasion of Ukraine. And I think this is part of it. Like this was kind of already happening, but this kind of exaggerated it, expedited it. It's happening much sooner and faster than what we had hoped. The other part is just like even something as simple as your Amazon Prime going up $2. Like you never would have thought about that. Like you never would have thought about Russia invading Ukraine and like the gas prices all of a sudden. And that means your streaming service or your shopping service might go up $2. But sure enough, like there it is. There's going to be a lot of subtle ways. Sorry, what's that?
I was just going to say, if there's any company that can't afford getting cut into their bottom line, it's Amazon.
Yeah, no, you definitely have a point there. I think there's going to be a lot of subtle things that just because of this invasion, like I said to you the other day, like 30 minutes of my day now, because of the algorithms, I'm just getting shoved like information about the Russia and Ukraine invasion. I can't avoid it if I wanted to. And so there's just going to be a lot of subtle things that you don't notice in your day-to-day life that it's going to change just because of
But
this.
you're a slow reader, so that's part of your 30 minutes is like 20 for the rest of it.
I am a slow reader. There's no doubt about that. Celebrities in their communities or Netflix Love is Blind. These are two kind of not controversial topics, but I think they're like open discussions that you and I were interested in.
Let's do Netflix Love is Blind because I'm thinking it's going to take so long. We might hold the celebrity in their community.
Why? We'll just hold it again. Why not?
It's not going anywhere. It's not like J.R. Smith is playing tomorrow.
Netflix has an experimental show called Love is Blind. It is a reality show. They claim to have, these are real people that have signed away, that they can be filmed and their actions are their own, it claims. Now, like any other reality show, you're hoping, like when you watch Survivor, are they probably getting tossed a banana if they're lightheaded? Who knows? We can debate it. But this is a reality show on Netflix.
Are they being tossed a banana if they're lightheaded?
You don't think people on Survivor are being tossed a snack if they're lightheaded?
That's a good question. Or do they want them to pass out?
It's fair. So Love is Blind, it's a reality show. It's kind of an experiment as well. Essentially what happens is they take a dozen or so men and they take a dozen or so women. They put them on opposite sides of the building. And in the middle are these pods that you can enter and you can talk to the person, but you cannot see them. And so this process, you meet, you talk, you bounce around, you talk to all these different people. And essentially what happens is after a couple of days, after a couple of weeks, however long it takes, if you want to see the person, you must propose to them and they must accept the proposal. And then you have a month to get married. So you meet the family, you do all of this stuff. I got to see a bunch of clips, like condensed episodes. And then I started I'm going to eventually, I want to see like a full episode and see what it actually looks like. Obviously everyone is fascinated by love and what is it and all this stuff. I find this whole experiment fascinating because what I've noticed is the majority of my thoughts end up becoming shallow. And so I started questioning my own self. How shallow am I based off of this experiment?
All right. So here are my questions because I've never seen the show. When they go into these pods and talk.
Yes.
Is this like speed dating? Have they talked to multiple people?
So they are talking. So they are talking to the majority of the people there. Like they have like segments and I wouldn't call it speed dating because like there's a couch and they get like in depth because there's nothing else to do. Like you can't.
But it's not like you're not assigned to a person. You can kind of go through and see who you like more than others.
Yes. And then as you figure out who you like more than others, you can request to talk to them more than other people. But speed dating's weird because a lot of this, from the looks of it, like you're on a couch in a nice room, like these are in-depth conversations. These aren't happening in like 5 minutes.
You can't have an in-depth conversation in 5 minutes?
It's really, really hard. We struggle with it every day.
Don't you think? Okay, now I'm going. Well, okay, we'll stay with Love is Blind. We'll stay away from. I think speed dating would be fascinating. I think it would be fascinating to talk to 5 different people in 25 minutes and just to kind of
try to make a choice.
Yeah. Just be just the whole, no matter who it was, even if it was not romantic, if you just like talk to a guy, hey, talk to this, what could you find out in 5 minutes? What do you like? What does he know? What do we have? Like, do we each know music? Do we each know football? Do we each like whatever?
Here's what I've always wondered about speed dating. Is it an advantage to be first or is it an advantage to be last?
That's a good question too. And I'm sure a lot of people would say, a person fooled me for a whole 9 months into a relationship. So someone could certainly fool me for 5 minutes. So someone could put on their best foot forward, if you will.
Oh, totally.
And put on a front.
I just know if you go first, you are now the bar. Like you are the comparative bar for the evening. But if you go last, you are the most prominent. And so I wonder, would you rather be the bar or would you rather be more prominent? I don't know. That's the part of speed dating, is that you can't possibly, someone has to go first, someone has to go last, and the psychology of that is going to work in somebody's advantage.
No, I agree with that. Okay, so back to Love is Blind. So,
yes.
So these people, and this goes on for a while, you said. This isn't like a day.
No, so some people end up, so like in the one condensed clip, I think it was like 3 or 4 days, like the guy proposed and the girl said yes. And so then they got to see each other and like meet in this long hallway and like hug, and then they get to leave. Some of these take weeks, like they, like they're trying to pick and choose and decide. It all depends. This is the part that you would be good at, because some people go in there and you can tell they don't know how to ask questions. They're very bad at asking the questions that actually get you to where you need to go if you're trying to figure someone out or fall in love with them. Or so the key component to me in this whole thing is, are you a good interviewer? Are you a good listener? Are you all these things that you just don't think about on a day-to-day basis? They're the most important part when you walk into this pod, because you can talk to somebody for weeks, and if you're not asking the right questions, you're wasting your time.
I also wonder, and we touched on this before the show, when you talk to someone on the phone, you kind of make a mental image of what they look like.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's happened to anyone that you've ever met that worked on radio, and you heard the voice over and over, and then you see them and you're just like, wow, it's not kind of what I pictured. So I don't know. Whenever I'm on with a customer relations or something like that, if I've got a girl with a Southern draw, I just picture her as a knockout. And I'm sure it can't always be that way. So I wonder how much of this, obviously you can only hear, and you're taking in the information that they're giving you.
Sure.
But how close people are to what they look like. And my question is, are you allowed to ask, how tall are you? What color's your hair? How much do you weigh?
So some of them hint at it, like they'll like, what's your ethnicity, like things like that. But a lot of them don't, because they are there because they feel like they haven't been able to find a real connection. So I think a lot of them find it like they really want to do this experiment. They're excited to do it. Like, to them, not seeing the person is a disadvantage. Like, to them, not knowing what they look like or necessarily their physical structure is the positive part of this whole thing.
Okay, so because I say for normal people, not these, for you and I, we would be petrified not to be able to see the person. You think these people are enjoying that part?
So let's play. Okay, so let's do it this way. And I just thought of this. Let's play shallow or not shallow. Are you ready?
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you thoughts I had as I was watching this, and you tell me if I'm shallow or not shallow.
Do you want me to hum the tune in the background?
If you want to, you can go for it.
No, go
so one of the things that first came to my mind was that I think I'm a decent listener, but what I would struggle with is, as they're talking the first couple of times, all I would be doing is trying to form the image in my head. Shallow or not shallow?
I'm going to say shallow, but honest, and you're in the vast majority.
Okay.
I think we're all doing that.
I like this is a bad example. Like, growing up in rural Pennsylvania, if you're like sitting by a campfire and something makes a sound, the first thing that goes through your head is the image of what it could be. And so the idea that you're going to sit and listen to this person and like have a conversation with them for a couple of days, and you're just never going to try to formulate the image in your head, I just think that's not realistic.
I'm with you. And
okay.
people
but it's still shallow. Even though you're with me, it's still shallow.
It probably is shallow, but it's the truth. Like, we all wouldn't do it, but most of us would do it.
Okay. So here's the next part. When you first go in, there's an advantage to being first. And what I mean by that is, the longer it goes on, people start getting picked, like they start getting proposed to. So I'm listening to this, and in my head, I'm thinking like, you almost just have to go with your gut. Like you just have to, like you have to go in there, and after 2 or 3 days, whichever one is hitting hard, you just have to like, you have to run with it and roll with it, and you almost have to ask them before somebody else does. And so you're almost jumping the gun. You're almost cheating the game, shallow or not shallow.
I'm not going to say that's shallow. I'm going to say it's a strategy, and I'm questioning it because my immediate devil's advocate would be if I think this chick is cool, it's not that someone else, I can't be worried about that someone else is going to ask her.
Okay.
Because she could say no. And if she's going to latch on to the first guy that asks her, then she's not nearly as cool as I thought.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's a good point. So this is my last one. The way they do this is after they propose, and if they say yes, they stand at the end of a long hallway. So there's like a revealing door on one side, a revealing door on the other, and they're standing across. And every time the same thing happens. The doors slide apart. They look at each other. They walk to the middle. They embrace. They kiss. They talk about how excited they are. And this is my issue with this. There's no way every time those doors have slid open, every person has been excited at what they have seen. There's just no way. And so I don't think that makes me shallow. I think somebody's lying and they are shallow.
Could you imagine the doors open and you're just like, yee.
But this is the point I'm making is like, I could be wrong. There's 2 seasons. I haven't seen them. However, based off of what I saw in the condensed, I'm going to guess that there's like 8 to 10 couples that like are revealed. So I'm going to guess that 20 or so couples have been revealed throughout the entirety of the show. I'm completely guessing. There's no mathematical way that 40 people saw each other for the first time and were just enthralled at what they saw. There's just no way.
No way.
And
no way.
So my question is, am I shallow for thinking that, or are they shallow for just playing along?
You're being honest.
Okay.
Now here are the other questions. What happens to the person who finds no, who everyone's like, this person's either uninteresting or a jerk? Or on the flip side, you've got the guy or the girl who's like, the one I wanted is gone. Like,
that
game
happens.
over.
That happened in the one condensed clip. That happened. Because remember, after they're talking, they all go back to the same common living space. So the girl's like, who did you like? I don't know. And the guys are like, who did you? So there end up being these conflicts between the same sex of like, which one are you after and which one? And I think he's going to propose to me. And like, it's a crazy experiment. I'm more fascinated by everything until they get out. Once they get out, I just think the world's too big. The world's too complicated. I'm sure a couple of these have worked out, but I'm guessing the majority of them don't.
But now, so to go back to the original premise of this, where it would be fascinating is people that you like you just find them more attractive than people that you don't like. And I'm not saying, obviously, if the girl's a 10, she could be the meanest, snobbiest person in the world, and she's still 10. I mean, we've all dealt with that. But if you take someone who's, I don't know, on the pass-fail scale is a pass. And then I've never told you that in the dating world, it's just really pass-fail.
You don't do the numbers. It's just they pass or they fail.
Well, you can do numbers, but in the real dating aspect, will you go out with someone or will you not? It's either a pass or a fail. They're either good enough or they're not. Sure. And you don't date the person better if she's a 9 as opposed to a 7. You know what I mean? You're either dating or you're not. You know what I mean?
No, I get your point. Someone once told me that the numbers shouldn't be 2D the numbers should be spatial because my numbers are different from your numbers. So it shouldn't necessarily be like a number scale. So pass fail kind of works for this because my scale would be different than your scale, different from my girlfriend's scale, different from, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So everyone has this idea. Everyone has this idea that a scale has to exist on this 2D, like, and everyone's is the same. And really, it should be like a spatial. Everyone's is different.
No, I get it. But the point I was making is, if you took a person who is a whatever, say that person is a 6, but you really, really like the person. They're funny. They're nice. They're whatever.
Sure.
They're now better. And so that you've just done this in the opposite order. So if you really, really like this person, whatever their attractiveness is, you're going to now rate them higher. Their physical attractiveness is going to be more physically attractive because you already know that you like them in general.
Interesting. So this is the other part of it. And I think we were talking about this a little bit before. I think this makes it worse. I think this makes the end result worse because there's not a lot of gray area. Either the door's open and you find them incredibly attractive and you already know emotionally you're attached to them and it's just the greatest experience of your life. The flip side of this is it's almost like you're breaking up with somebody that you thought you had or you thought you knew because you have this emotional attachment to them. And then you see them, and if it's not what you had aligned or it's not what you're attracted to, now all of a sudden you feel like you've lost the person that you were just talking to for 3 weeks in these pods. And that is devastating. Like, to me, that's worse than like an actual breakup. So it's very much like a everything or nothing concept to me.
Well, I would say it's even worse because in a breakup, there comes this aspect of like you were in all the aspects, you were good enough for me and I was good enough for you, and of all that, we just didn't work for some reason. There's just something about it that's not working. In this, it's like we work, then we walk in the door and you're like, nope, you don't look good enough for me. And that would be insulting more than it would be just like, because you've cleared every other hurdle. You're ready. And then the last hurdle is physical appearance.
Sure.
And then if you get to that one's
rough. Interesting. The only other part of this that I don't like from the clips that I've seen, there's a lack of, I think there's a false sense of hope that this works because you bubble them down to a point where there's just no outside factors. There's like, you might think like, so here's a perfect example. If I'm talking to somebody in a pod and I can't see them, there are no, like, I'm not hungry, I'm not cold, I'm not late for something, none of the outside factors in how I may react to those or how the other person may react to those are involved in this experiment. Because if you did the same experiment, but you had to drive somewhere, like you couldn't see the person in the passenger seat and someone was driving and like there was like a goal and a task and you had to do this, you had to be there. I promise you, a lot of these connections would not be as solid or work in the same way. So I don't know how you add in the world, the elements of the world into this idea of not seeing the person and getting to know them.
So here, you want me to give you my advice on this, I'm 50 years old advice. So when you're on this show, when your girlfriend dumps you because she realizes she can do better, and you're on this show, this is the one thing you need to learn. And can they take a joke?
No, it's true. But see, I think you're helping me make my point at the same time, because it's really easy to take a joke when you're sitting on a couch in a pod with nowhere to go. It's a lot harder to take a joke when the person's hangry because they haven't ate in an hour, or you're late to go to some dinner and then it's harder to take a joke. And though that to me is the element of this that's missing.
I don't know. I think you can tell.
Maybe in a pod for 2 weeks when I don't have to deal with work or family or anything. Anybody can act normal and take a joke in those circumstances. And that's what this experiment, it clears everything else out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree with that to a degree, and maybe it's because I joke so much that, and because I insult people. Like, it's you can tell. You can tell the people who are like, "Wow, I can't believe he said that." You know, like, like there are people that how I like once every 2 weeks I make fun of Blossburg. I have been there now. I actually have been in Blossburg. I have a picture of it for you. But like, and you can tell the people who like, and they laugh back and then they make fun of my Toursville and they, or the people who are like, wow, did he just make fun of my hometown? Yes, I did. I mean, so I think you can tell, and not even, maybe not who can take a joke better, but who takes themselves too seriously. Like, those are the aspects that I think you would be able to tell. And I think you would also, the other thing that you would need to look for, obviously the people on this show are looking for love, but who are desperately looking for love, who are lost without love, whose mission when they wake up every morning is to go find love. Like, that would be an issue.
That's conflicting for you though, because you like to be liked.
There's a difference between being liked and like the need for love.
The need for being liked and the need for being loved is, I would imagine that is a slippery slope.
I think they're different. They are different.
So there, Love is Blind. So if you get a chance, if you want to watch it, I find the whole thing fascinating. Obviously, they pick people that they know will be, good for TV, entertaining, stuff like that. So some of it you have to take with a grain of salt. But the actual concept, I'm floored by. I wonder too. Very intriguing.
I wonder too that I think the difference between women and men is where I'm going with this, because people will talk that men are so much more visual, and I think in general that's true. Shut up. That was just rude. That was rude, and I can't take the joke.
No. I'm saying I thought you were going to throw in like a little like last 30-second comment, and you're like, the difference between men and women. No. And I'm like, this is another 30-minute show.
Here's my point. Because you've heard that. Have you heard that like men are just so much more visual than women?
I have not. No.
Oh, okay. And like, how often in your life, and all heterosexuality here, where have you ever seen a guy who you knew was like a really good looking guy who was with a girl who was just like, eh? But how often have you seen a really hot girl who was with a guy who you're like, wow, I'm surprised that she's with him? So obviously women I think there are way more guys who've overachieved than vice versa. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of it also comes down to what is, obviously there's a lot of individualism here. I would say, like, if you're trying to generalize or if you're trying to make it like specific, I think what men believe women are after is very different than what most men think. I think men apply what they assume is attractive, and they apply that to how a woman would assume or would approach something as attractive. And I think those are two very different things. I understand where you're going with the visual side of that, and how that would appear to be more about visual. But I just think guys they just attach their mindset to a girl, and that must be what they are after, or what they're looking for.
So you're saying guys are more shallow?
I think guys are much more shallow. I told you, I watched that show, and like 3 times I was like, I'm so shallow. Because they would like say something or do something, and I'd be like, that's not real. Or like that, like you, like I couldn't do that. Like, so I do think guys can be more shallow. I think guys have a harder time of putting themselves into other people's shoes. I honestly, I know like you tend to disagree with the idea of like, I don't know. I think women are much better at seeing a broader perspective than men typically are. That's
well,
my
I was going to say, and I agree with your original point. The people who are the people who are good conversationalists would have a huge advantage because you need to know what to ask. You need to genuinely listen. And there are a lot of people in life who are really bad listeners. They hear what you said, but they didn't listen to what you said. The whole I can hear Jimmy, you can't hear Jimmy from White Men Can't Jump. But yeah, I think in general, women would be better at this than men are.
I think so. In the small clips that I saw, women were just significantly better interviewers than men. They knew what to ask. They knew how to keep a conversation going. They knew how to lead them down a road to find the answer they wanted. They were so much more prepared than the guys were. That's one of the biggest takeaways that I took from it.
Well, I think, and I would say that's probably because in general, I would think women's conversations with other women are much different than guys' conversations with
Absolutely.
guys. And so, yes, it would not surprise me that the women are better at that. And I think
here's the funny thing.
I would just say when the doors open, I think if the women were like this guy, they're going to like him. Much more so than the woman is going to be disappointed with the physical appearance, much less than the guy is. If the woman's decided this guy is the one for me, then vice versa.
Another interesting tidbit was, like I just said, the women were better interviewers. They knew the questions asked. They knew how to get the answers they wanted. They knew how to they knew the follow-up right after the person and how to dig deeper. The funny thing about that though is if you're a guy, I know a lot of guys that's interest. Like she must be. And so for them, that's like, they could know nothing about the woman, but think they have this great connection because she's so interested in me. And so the irony is you have these single guys like sitting on this couch and they're like lighting up, like they're smiling and they're excited and all this stuff. Cause like, she's asking questions about me. Like she's interested in me. Like she wants to know about me. And so I do wonder if there's this false sense of, am I really connecting with her? Or is she just stuck in a pod and her literal goal is to figure out who I am? So it's not so much that she's interested in me as much as it's just like, she's actually asking questions and leading me down this path. And I'm not falling for it, but I don't actually know her the way I think I know her.
Well, I've had this conversation with people too, especially once as texting came out and as social media came out and that women would say these, there was a general bewilderment with their like, I was nice to this guy and we're friends and now all of a sudden, he's hitting on me, he's asking me out and all this stuff. And I said, it's just because like growing up, it was, I don't say girls were just mean to you, but they like the whole guy girl relationship is not, if a girl was nice to you, you took that as she was interested because so few girls were just nice to you. They either didn't talk to you or they were, so that is a natural guy reaction.
Yeah. And I do wonder how on the show, I wonder how many of guys fall for that because it would be very easy.
Yes. Oh, she's nice to me, so she obviously likes me. She's asking me these questions, so she obviously likes me. And so, so how many guys fall in love with the best interviewer because she was the most interesting to talk to, but on the flip side, the guy didn't really find out that much about her, or he did in retrospect. He found out stuff about her because of the question she was asking. It is interesting. I would love to. I would be more interested. I love the concept of the show, even though I think it would not. Yeah, maybe it works better than I thought. My initial thought was there's no way it works. Maybe it works way better than I thought. But I think it would be, I think the women would have a much better chance of doing well at this than the guys would as a whole.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Do you want to do, we don't have anywhere to go. Do you want to do celebrities in their communities?
do you mean we don't have anywhere to go? Yeah, let's do it.
We don't have anywhere to go. Do you have somewhere to go? Do you have something to do there?
I have a meeting in a couple hours, so I'm good.
There you go. Let's do celebrities in their communities. There is, for anybody who doesn't know who J.R. Smith was, he was a professional basketball player. He played with LeBron James. He could shoot it a little bit. He made, I don't know what his total dollar figure was. I bet you he made over $100 million for his career. If you actually looked at from the beginning.
Wasn't he like a sixth man in Cleveland for a long time too?
He was a starter in Denver. He was a borderline all-star in Denver for a lot of years. He actually got paid by the New York Knicks for a couple of years. A lot of people don't remember that. He played with Carmelo Anthony and Denver and New York City. And then he ended up in Cleveland and actually started for some of those LeBron James teams. So he made, I bet you it was close to $100 million for his career. He recently on a podcast, he was doing an interview, and they fell into this conversation about how he spent his money as a young athlete. He talked about going to bars and clubs and different places and dropping, $50,000 in a night like it was nothing. He talked about some of his bus fines because he would always be late for the team bus. And so, they slap you with like a $10,000 fine. Well, if you're late for the bus, 20 times in a season, that's $100,000 that you just paid in bus fines. So he was going through it, and he talked about his regret that money's just gone now, and all the things in hindsight he could have done for his community, the people he could have fed, the things that he could have helped fix. And he referred to his community as the Hood. I think he's from North Carolina, so I'm not sure where exactly he's referring to, but he called it the Hood. And it just, for me personally, it brought up this whole concept of what do celebrities actually owe their communities. I think people always talk like there's a moral obligation, and clearly there's things as a person that you should do for your community, regardless of who you are and how much money you make. But I also can't help but feel like this was his money and how he spent it was his choice. And that the idea that he should feel like he didn't uphold his end of the deal, I don't know if I totally agree with that.
Well, I mean, if it was coming from an outside influence and said, J.R. Smith should have done this because he should have, then I'm with you on that. For him, it's just kind of a moment of self-reflection and what do you do with the money that gives you the most self-gratitude? And when he was, an NBA player, that in the moment, he thought, going to strip clubs and making it rain and dropping $50,000 in the moment made him feel like whatever he needed to feel at that time. Whereas now that he's older and he looks back and he's like, if I would have built a community center with some basketball courts and some computers and like that would make him feel better. So it's, the shallow, quick excitement. It's like, is it the roller coaster ride or is it the long walk in the park? Because they both are enjoyable. They're just for different reasons. So, yeah, I get it. The thing that he had said, and I think that he's just trying to enlighten the guys, is that we can make a difference. And if that there's shallow ways you can make a difference, and then there's not. And there's all kinds of examples. I know, from my brother playing in the big leagues for so many years, you see the wardrobes of some of these guys, and there would be some guys who had like 3 suits and they kept rotating the suits throughout the year. Sure. And then there would be some guys that you never saw them in the same suit twice. And you're trying to guesstimate how much they spend, and everything's tailored and everything. The shoes are dyed to match the suit, and they only wear it once, like a prom dress. You only wear it once, you can't wear it again. So, there's how much money and what does person A get out of spending so much money on wardrobe, where person B will wear the same, they have a black suit, a blue suit, a gray suit, a black suit, a blue. So what does one person get that the other person doesn't get? And so, there is a lot to, what you can do and what you can't. And it's an interesting, mature moment of reflection that I think he's just trying to give to the younger people that, like, hey, when you get older too, you're going to look back and it's better to say, like, I planted that tree than, you know what I mean?
I think I know exactly what you mean. And I think, like, I agree with the majority of what you're saying. And so this isn't even a devil's advocate, but this is where my brain went with it. There is, when you listen to it and when you read the quotes, it's very clear to me that J.R. Smith believes it's his responsibility and he missed it. And so we're like, as society, culture, whatever word you want to use, I just don't think that's a celebrity's issue. Like, fixing your community, I think you can help. I think you can promote it. I think if you want to make it a moral choice to do so, that's fantastic. But what's weird to me is I think some people truly believe that celebrities or people who are successful, that it is their responsibility to fix some of this stuff. And I feel like that's the whole point of government. I feel like that's the whole point of elected officials and boards and putting the money into the right places. It shouldn't take somebody with an absurd talent to collect over $100 million in their career to come in and fix education or fix local parks or fix whatever the issue is. And so that is I guess that's my conflict as I was listening to him, was I almost wanted to walk up and just be to him like, hey, just so you know, this, like, it's nice that you're reflecting and you want to help with this stuff, but none of this is on you. Like, none of this was your responsibility. And that's what it sounded like.
Yeah, I get it. And you're right. It depends to interview these people and ask what that word is. And do you think the word is responsibility? And all these are opinions. If you ask, a 1,000 different celebrities, you get, is it responsibility or is it opportunity? And I'm sure that, say he paid $100,000 in bus fines just because he couldn't get to the bus on time. Like, you know where he could get on time? For opening tip. So, like, people get to places when they prioritize it, and people. So if he's like, okay, in such and such a season, I paid $100,000 in fines because I was late for the bus. If I would have taken that $100,000 back to his hood, as he said, I could have done this in the park. I could have done this at the library. I could have done this in the school. And I'm sure he's like, yeah. Now, on the good side of this, I think this is the way it used to be. If a player got fined by the organization, I think there are rules in the collective bargaining agreement. The organization can't just keep that money, because then if they thought they got into a bad contract, they would just say, oh, you were a minute late, there's a $10 million fine. So they have to give that money to charity. So I'm guessing that his money went to a good cause, but it wasn't his cause in his hometown from the people that he grew up in. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't begrudge when you see people like whoever. And when Lady Gaga has a house in LA, a house in New York, a house in, like, I don't begrudge for that, because but it would be interesting to think. I think all the people that have been uberly successful feel some sense of obligation to give back to their community. The question is how much, and is it their obligation, or those are very fair questions.
Yeah, I get it. Also, the tone. To me, there was just this sense of, if you are a celebrity and however you are successful and however you make your money, it was just this tone of, like, you have to fix it because no one else will. And so that's the other part of it that was he just made it very clear that no one else was going to fix his hood. Like, no one else was going to fix his community. And again, like, I just find it, I was sad for him in the sense, and trust me, I've never been sad for J.R. Smith, but listening to him talk about this, I was sad for him in the sense that you could tell he felt like he let people down in that way. And so it was almost more of a warning to the younger athletes or younger celebrities, letting them know, like, hey, just so you know, like, you do have this responsibility on the back end of this. And like, I'm very conflicted with that. I don't know. I don't think it's an obligation. I don't think it's a responsibility. I think it's nice. I think it's charitable. I think it helps. But I don't know if a celebrity, the idea that they're on the hook for something because they were successful or they had a talent or they had a means of doing it, I don't know. I think I disagree with that.
Well, but his feelings are his, and they're genuine. And if he has a genuine feeling of sadness or remorse that I could have done all this and I didn't, then I could understand that. And if his whole point is to the youngsters, like, I feel like crap because I blew however much money that, and I'm assuming J.R. Smith is not broke now. That's not part of the story, correct?
I don't think he's broke. I think the whole, like, he went back to school. He was on the school's golf team that made like national news. I don't know if you saw that or not.
No.
He was on, because he went right from high school to the NBA. So he had all his college eligibility. He just couldn't do basketball because of the rules. So he joined the golf team and he made like he lettered. Like, he was one of the better golfers in the conference.
Which is hard because it's hard to be a tall golfer.
Yes.
How tall is J.R. Smith?
6'6", 6'7".
Yeah, that's tough. Like, you even get above like 6'2", 6'3". You don't see many tall golfers.
Yeah. So like, he's going back to college. Like, he's doing all these things. I would have gave him a pat on the back and be like, you don't owe anybody anything. I honest to God, I think that's what I would have said to him.
And I get, and I don't disagree with that. And I don't even know if he disagrees with that. But when you find there are people who help because they like to help and it makes them feel good, and they made the world a better place. And I can sense, without ever hearing the interview, without ever really hearing J.R. Smith talk, I can just remember watching J.R. Smith shoot, that he feels like he could have made the world a better place. And I'm sure, listening to this, I'm sure he's done stuff. Oh, and absolutely. Now he's just saying, I could have done way more. And I think that it's just kind of like a sense of regret. And I get that.
Yeah. No, anyway, that's the celebrities and their communities conversation that we've been holding on.
So what we should take out of this is, when you have $100 million in your bank account, you ain't helping nobody.
I think I'm definitely helping people. I think it's like you said, it's the difference between an obligation and a choice. And I think if J.R. Smith wants to make that choice and he wants to, I think like morally that's the right choice. But this idea that like he owed somebody something, or he owed his community, or I just disagree with that sentiment. I don't think that's true.
Okay. But I wonder too how many people, and it's easy for people who aren't famous to say what they would do when they're famous, and it's easier for people that aren't rich to say what they would do when they're rich. But I wonder how many celebrities do really give back, and what causes they give back to, and is it in their hometown? Is it somewhere else? But no, I do agree with him from the standpoint that, if he's if you made $100 million, if instead of being, a 5'10" shooter, you were a 6'10" shooter, and you made $100 million, I do get his standpoint that nobody's going to care about Blossberg more than you did. No politician, no government official. So if there's if you could help Blossberg, you're going to help it more than anybody else would. So I see that point from him.
And I think it just comes back to the idea of like, if J.R. Smith is giving money to his community, I hope he's doing it because he wants to, and not because he wakes up in the morning and he feels obligated to. Because those are two very different things.
I would bet from anyone that would come out and say that would be self-reflective enough that he would just kind of want to. My question for you is, have you ever looked at your parents and said, if you would have just made me a foot taller, I'd be rich?
The irony is, I think you and maybe you don't know this. So my mom is a twin. She had a twin brother.
Yeah, he's super tall.
So my mom was 5'10", like that when she was like going through like school. Which back then, if you were a 5'10" girl, like those people, they weren't just walking around. And then her twin brother was, 6'6", 6'7", my uncle. And then his.
So what you're saying? Let's cut through. Let's peel back the onion. It's your dad's fault. That's what you're saying. You're blaming your dad.
I mean, listen. You either find a way or you don't. I did not. I liked listen, I joke with people all the time. I really liked the sport that I fell in love with, but like let's not kid ourselves, like I wasn't eating right, I wasn't lifting, like I was not the things that you kind of have to do to like I wasn't doing those things.
To
like,
grow an extra foot. You can't eat right to grow an extra foot.
So yeah, it's not my dad's fault entirely, but yeah, didn't help.
Listen, I was watching Ron Harper Jr. hit 3-pointers last night. And he's a fun player. I'd be interested to get your scouting report to see if he have a chance in the league. But
yeah,
you look at all those college kids for Rutgers and Indiana that I was watching last night. They're not all eating right. They've shoved more cheeseburgers down their throat, just as many as you and I did when we were teenagers. They're just good.
That might be true.
Who was the one? Who did Trump feed all the fast food to? Was that Clemson?
I can't remember. I don't remember who it was when he had the whole table and it was just laid out.
That was one. I don't know whose idea it was. That was one of the coolest things of his presidency when he brought the national. I think it was Clemson when he brought the national champions and he had all different fast foods because the college kids, it was like Candyland to them.
Sure, not just it would have been Candyland to anybody.
That was a great story. Whoever came up with that, and I could just imagine that was Trump's idea. Because I know as president, he has 100 people telling him things all the time.
Sure.
But I could see if he's like, no, let's just feed them what they want. They don't want steak tartare. They want quarter pounders and Pizza Hut and buckets of chicken, and that's what they want. And let's do it.
What is steak? Did you say steak tartare?
Isn't that something? It sounds like it.
Steak never heard tartare. Of that? I've never heard of that.
I think it's. I've heard of it. I'm pretty sure steak tartare is something. I want to say it's almost rare, or there's a. I don't know.
Okay.
You never heard of steak tartare? I tried to think of something that sounded fancy.
I
obviously went over your head.
You did. We went to Loyal Sock girls played at Milton last night. So I met my girlfriend at Jackass Brewery in Lewisburg. Have you ever heard of this?
Okay, I've heard of it. I've never been there.
Okay. First time going, really enjoyable, really good food, really good drinks. It was just really neat place. And one of the things I had my waitress, she didn't ask me how I wanted my burger done. She asked me how pink or no pink. And I'd never heard that. It's usually like, how would you like it done? And then medium rare, everything else. She literally used like a pink scale to ask me how I wanted my burger done. And honestly, I didn't answer for like 5 seconds. It threw me off. I had to wrap my head around what she was asking me. Have you ever had somebody ask you that way before?
I have always ordered like zero pink. It needs to be whether it's a steak, whether it's because I've had people I've ordered it medium well and it comes back pink. So I clarify it. Like I want no pink.
So you've actually used the color to describe how you want the burger or the steak before. Interesting.
I don't love fancy steakhouses because they never cook my steak enough.
Yeah, but you're probably not to be a jerk, you're probably eating them wrong. Like you're not supposed to. You don't want to burn it. Like you do want it to be.
No, I don't want to burn, but I want it brown.
I typically get mine.
All you people who know better than me are like, oh, you cook out all the flavor. I taste the pink flavor. I think it tastes yucky. That's why I like it brown. I think it's better.
I'm zero surprised that Mark likes poorly cooked steak.
Is steak tartare raw? Because I hate poorly. Oh yeah. They say I understand.
No, if anyone knows what steak tartare is, please comment because I've never heard this before in my life.
I know every steak connoisseur is like, oh no, you can't cook it medium well. You're tasting all the flavor out. It tastes good to me. That's all I know.
I typically do medium rare. That's medium usually rare? My go-to. Yes.
Oh, I would have trouble like sitting next to you, watching you eat a steak.
Really? Why?
Yeah.
I get not preferring it, like I get not wanting it, but being close to it. What does that?
I'm being overdramatic. I would. Okay. You would like sitting next to me because I would not ask you to share.
Really? So I had my burger. I looked right at the lady. I said, I think I want it medium rare. So whatever amount of pink that would be, because I didn't know. I just didn't know. She threw me off.
Do you burn your
marshmallows?
marshmallows?
Heard that before. Say it again.
Do you burn your marshmallows?
You know what? I don't love marshmallows. I usually don't eat marshmallows.
Oh, so you're not a campfire?
No, I usually it's just not, I don't know, the texture and just the stickiness. Like I'm kind of
not the taste, it's the texture.
I don't love marshmallows.
Okay. Because I've always had that debate with people too. Like, do you burn the marshmallow or do you just brown it? I don't get why.
I mean, if I'm making like a s'more, I'll usually try to like rip a marshmallow in half so I can have less marshmallow in the s'more, and then I'll usually try to go like brownish and then put it on. But I'm not a huge marshmallow fan.
Okay, I'll give you that.
There you go. So my mom, who was a home ec teacher, steak tartare is raw ground beef, is what she says. So there you go. Yeah.
And that
I've never heard of it.
Nasty as it sounds.
It's raw beef, seasoned, marinated. It's good. Tuna tartare is also popular. There you go.
Well, see, tuna. Oh, so they're talking tuna. I'm thinking tuna out of the can, which was probably cooked once upon a tuna tartare.
Sure.
Never. Yeah, I don't know. Listen, uncooked. So it's just like you just found it along the road. It's just uncooked.
Found it along because everyone finds tuna right along.
No, I was back to the steak.
Okay.
I was back to
the just picking up tuna right off the side of the road.
Just right off the side of the road. Oh, beautiful. So yeah, right. So I steak tartare. So I knew what I was talking about. I've never had it. Always. I would starve to death before I ate raw steak, but I know what it is because I'm a worldly guy. And I'm so worldly, I bought The Best Movies You Never Saw by Joe Smith.
Nice. Good stuff. He's going to be back on. I think he's going to be back on with us next week at some point. Next week, just who do we have coming on next week? I know there's someone else I'm forgetting now.
It's Jen Smith. No, Jen Wilson. Jen Smith.
Yes.
Jen Wilson, who is she's, I want to say First Community. She is a bigwig behind the Raise the Region. And so we are going to talk about that. She can also really sing. I don't know if you don't know her. I know her a little. I know her husband better. I was somewhere. It was either a wedding or a funeral, one of the two. Okay. And she sang, and like the girl can sing. So I don't even want to ask her questions. I just want to like kind of goad her into, belting out a few notes.
That can work. We can try that. By the way, am I going to have a surprise guest tomorrow?
Whoever you bring. It'll be a surprise.
Whoever I bring. Okay.
I could probably, I don't know if they can drive them.
Can't you just walk on the Pitt's campus and just like find
We're going to be in the car.
Okay.
And I would say that I could let my daughter drive while I do the show, but the car is stick. And, these kids nowadays, they just can't drive stick.
Yeah.
So.
Because they're lazy.
All kids are lazy. Lazy and stupid, isn't that?
Just anytime you just go through life. Anytime you do something comfortable, like driving an automatic vehicle, you're just lazy.
I like driving stick. I always have. I think I've told this story before. One of the reasons I got it was to get the phone out of my hand. And I used to have a stick, and I really liked it. And then they're so hard to find now. But because the whole text and drive, and not that I've ever texted and driven, but I was bad. And so I was like, if I find a stick car, then I have to put the phone down. And that was really one of the reasons I did it. Now that I've done it, I really do. I feel like, I feel like Richard Petty is, I think I'm cool as can be. So do you know is that too old of a reference for you? Do you know?
NASCAR. I know. Yeah, no, I know.
All right,
yeah.
I'm just checking.
I know the Petty family. This is pretty good. Stick shift is the most popular anti-car theft available today.
I've heard that before, that they're like, hey, you know what that's called? And I was like, well, I just call it a stick. And they're like, no, it's an anti-theft device. So yes, there is, yes. And I swore when I got it that I would teach my kids how to drive it just in case. And my two girls have not, and we haven't. And my son's pumped to learn, but he's only 15. So yeah. But it's hard. Like when I went shopping, there are pickup trucks and there are some that I got a Mazda. But there are not a whole lot of, and back when we were, well, I don't know when you were young, when I was young, stick cars were they were cheaper than automatic because automatic was new and it was but when I was coming through high school, like all kinds of people drove stick. And I'm not going to say half, but a lot. And now, it might have been like equal price. It might even been a little more to get stick because it's kind of a novelty.
Huh. Interesting.
You can drive stick, right? You grew up on the farm, so you have to be able to drive stick.
No and no. I never learned.
Really?
I've never, it's funny. All the things that I have like been fascinated by or dove into cars and trucks and I've never been interested. They just get me A to B. I don't care. I've just never been a car or truck person.
Now I'm with you on that, but like from my recollection, I thought all the old pickup trucks were stick. So I would have thought you as a 15-year-old driving around the farm, I would have thought if you got that your truck would have been stick.
I was spoiled. I've been in Jeeps my whole life. I've been very, very spoiled. I've been spoiled and pampered, and now I'm just lazy.
No, you've always been lazy.
Yes.
It's too bad you're only 5'10" instead of 6'10". 6'10".
No, it has to go in that order. It has to go in that order. First, I was spoiled, then I was pampered, and now I'm comfortable, so I'm lazy. That's how it goes.
No, I would disagree with that because I think there would be poor kids that are lazy, and they're not spoiled or pampered. Yeah, they're just lazy.
That's the most Republican you've ever sounded.
You don't think? Listen, there are lazy kids from every demographic.
Did you just lose your Democrat registration?
No,
listen. Go check it. Poor kids are lazy.
There are lazy rich kids. There are lazy poor kids. There are lazy white kids. There are lazy black kids. Laziness it matriculates every teenager. I would say finding a teenager that's not lazy is harder than finding the one that is lazy.
You and I have talked about it before. I think this younger, I think this age group right now, that's like 12 to 16. I think they're fascinating. I think they're like, and again, not every kid's the same, but I just find that group right now, like they're interested in stuff, like they do things. I don't know. I find them really, really neat. I don't think they're very.
And now we've gone on way too long, but I think that, yes, because of, we've talked about this a bunch, because of what they've grown up with, that they're still so young and immature because 12 is 12, but they're still so intelligent. There's so much more. They've seen so much more. They know so much more, even just about technology and all that stuff. They're so much smarter than we were.
Sure.
And they've been exposed to so much more. So yeah, it is. No, I'm with it. I just think the thing with teenagers is there's so much on the go, and they're made so much that then when they kind of stop and they just crash, and their ability to just stop, I think it's more exaggerated than ours. But they're my teenagers, they're busy. They're a lot of times teenagers they have to do too much and they're too busy.
Yeah, there's some truth to that. I mean, there's way more now. It's funny because putting together like spring schedules and summer and like just trying to get into that mind now for basketball, sometimes I laugh when I'm doing it because I'll just be like, I'm pretty sure on a random Saturday in May, I was like down at the river with my buddies trying to like dam up and swim. You know what I mean? Like we were throwing rocks in a pile and trying to dam up the Tioga. And the idea that like we were ever going this like AAU travel basketball team and going to a tournament and like So I don't know. I mean, there are aspects nowadays that kids have so much more to do. Yeah, they're just always something, always.
And that's not always good. Like they need the time to go try to dam up the Tioga.
Yes, they
that's
do.
an important
More
part.
People need time. You got to go. All your clothes get orange, so your mom and dad know that you were there. You can't. If you go home and lie and try to tell them that you weren't at the river, they're gonna know because everything's stained orange. Elizabeth, what's going on in Waynesboro? EMS and police flying down the Golden Strip. I don't know. Maybe one of our reporters will see this and they'll help us out with it. But it sounds like EMS and police are flying down the Golden Strip in Loyalsock, PA. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Who knows? I do not know.
Thank you. Anything else before you go today?
No, we've kind of covered all around the world.
Covered all our bases?
Yep.
Okay, I'll let you go.
So bring in a surprise guest tomorrow. See who you can
I'm
get.
going to. I'm gonna figure something out. We'll figure out who's gonna come on. We'll have some interesting conversation tomorrow. I'm trying to think. Last time you weren't on, I had on the comedian from Lycoming College.
Okay.
And then I'm trying to think what else we did. And then I also had on. Say again.
I was just gonna say I got a stupid story for you too. I can tell you this off the air, but you'll get a kick out of it on the air. So I'm working the Georgeville Junior High tournament. I'm running the clock. Yeah. And 7th grade tournament. And so next to me at the scores table, I'm the clock, and there's a bookkeeper from the one team, bookkeeper from the other team. And the person on my right was a lady who was keeping the book. And she looked like she was, 30-something, whatever. So I said to her, "Is your husband the coach?" Because that's usually how. And she said, "Yeah." And I said, here's all you need to say as you're scoring. I said, sometime when he walks up near the table, I said, just look at him and say, "What are you doing?" And just leave it at that. And then I said, after that, after you've worn that one out, the only other line you need is sometime when he walks up, just look at him and say, "Are you trying to lose?" And just go. And at the time I said this to her, the game was close and it was late. I said, save it for like the first quarter sometime when things are less tense. But so I'm wondering if she ever pulls it out, if he walks by the bench and she's like, "Are you trying to lose?"
That's pretty good.
That would be awesome.
There's a whole aspect to keeping the book, because for people who don't know, there's the scorekeeper, the guy who runs the clock, but then you also have two people that keep a green book that essentially keeps track of fouls and who scored. And it's kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? The ledger of the game.
It's the official ledger of the game. Well, one of them is official.
Yes. And there's no code of etiquette per se. However, there is this idea you're not really supposed to cheer. You're clearly not supposed to yell at the referee or anything. It's just kind of these unwritten golden rules of doing the book. I'm always so impressed. The other night, our Loyalsock girls won at the buzzer against a really good Bloomsburg team. And it's been a battle for a couple of years now. And when I look over at the table, I'm always impressed that everyone's just able to stay emotionless. Everybody's just able, because it's everything's riding on this game. There's 3 seconds left. And when you look over, there's just there's the two people with the book and they're kind of stone faced. And it's just, so anybody who does the book and they're willing to just cut the emotion out of what they're seeing in front of them, I always applaud them. I'm just always so impressed by it.
I like keeping the book. I'm much better at keeping the book, and I will do the PA system. I'm getting better at doing the clock. The clock is hard because you just have to pay attention. When we're doing the book, you can communicate. And with the other person, you speak out loud too. You're 2-pointer from number 3. The foul's on number 2. His first team's third. And you're kind of working together just so everybody's on the same page. If it's the clock, if you don't start it when the ball's in bounds, you got people screaming at you and you've screwed up the game. And it's so there is a pressure and a focus to running the clock. And you just really have to focus. And if you get watching the game, you're like, "Oh, that was a good play. Oh, that was a bad call. Oh, I would have done this." And now all of a sudden so keeping the clock, it takes a special person.
It's pretty tough. Real quick, Elizabeth was letting us know it seemed like EMS and police were flying down the Golden Strip. Christopher's saying that it's a vehicle accident, so we'll keep looking into it or not. But those are just two people helping us out. If you're curious, sounds like there's something going on in the Golden Strip in Loyalsock. Don't go down and look for it yourself. Stay away. Let people that are qualified take care of it.
And that just proves we have 2 people still listening.
You're always so shocked by this, so surprised.
I am.
You know what's funny is do you ever wonder now how many people were actually listening to you when you did the radio in Baltimore?
Yeah, I've thought about it. We've seen
do you think it's more or less knowing what you know now?
That's a good question.
It is. We'll ponder that for a second. Christopher is also saying it's 3,100 block, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, there were a lot. I know there were a lot.
Oh, sure. I mean, you're in Baltimore on a radio station. Like I'm not diminishing it. It's just, I'm sure in your head as you were doing the show, there was probably a number that you just kind of figured this many people are listening to me. No, you never did that.
Like the guy on the other side of the glass, the people.
Stop.
I just had this, and the callers. You could tell when callers called in. But I just always had this belief that, like, why would anyone listen to this? Okay. So, but it worked for me. That's how it worked. Because when you get the whole, like, there's no stage fright. Why is there stage fright? Nobody's listening.
Sure.
Like right now, I really find when you put up comments, my Pavlovian response is, oh my gosh, someone's listening.
Really?
It is, yes. I think it's just you and I, baby. Just me and you.
So you wake up every day just waiting to have an hour-long conversation with me. Just for you and I.
I don't wait. I know. No, it's kind of an obligation, like J.R. Smith. It's not an opportunity to have a conversation. It's an obligation.
Yes. Here we go. Vicky says I'm only listening to Jeff. So there you go.
All right, that was funny. See, now in one conversation, in this Love is Blind thing, like Vicky is ahead of the pack right there.
That would have won you over then.
That is funny. Now, she may be serious, so she may be ahead in your pack. But, yeah, that was a good line.
So real quick, Carrie shared something with us. And it has to do, I know it's not your favorite topic. Apparently, there was an assassination foiled after a Russian tip-off. Apparently, they were going after Ukraine President Zelensky. This is on Newsbreak, so this is going public right now. But apparently, there was an assassination attempt on the Ukrainian president, and it was foiled because a Russian actually tipped off Ukraine.
Wow.
That's pretty crazy. It has been.
You know who needs political asylum right now? The dude who tipped them off.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can find out who it was. I mean, that's the biggest key, right? Can they actually pinpoint who did it or who was the person that tipped them off or not?
Wow.
It's the most interesting thing, because there's a lot of different, as this week has gone on, I've seen the videos and I've been watching all this stuff. The most interesting thing to me is how I did not realize how close, not geographically Ukraine and Russia were, but there's a lot of people within Ukraine and within Russia that they have no ill will towards each other at all. And not only that, they can't tell the difference. It's not like someone walks over the border and they can tell they're Ukrainian or they can tell they're Russian. It is, that whole aspect of it is fascinating. Did you see what they're doing for prisoners of war? Did you see this at all?
No.
So if you are a Russian soldier and you are captured by Ukraine, you are allowed to go free if your mother comes to Ukraine and picks you up.
What?
Yeah. And it goes even further. The Ukrainian government and their citizens are letting Russian captured soldiers call home to their mother.
Wow.
Yeah, again, that is now what I have found the most. I mean, early on, there's the whole strategy side of it. There's the whole Putin side of it. There's, the visual aspects of war in itself, which are gruesome, but it's almost like a car wreck. Like, it's hard to look away sometimes. But now, after a week, I'm blown away at just culturally, like, how this is playing out and just the way Ukraine is handling it. Because a lot of you get the feeling that a lot of these Russians, they either don't know what's really going on, or they don't actually are driven or motivated to be a part of it. And I think Ukraine sees that in a lot of it. And so, like, this opportunity of, if you're a prisoner of war, if your mom will come get you, she can take you. And it's just very unique, very different.
Yeah. Yeah, that is nuts.
Even I was thinking about this the other day. Even if Canada and the United States had a conflict, I think maybe you wouldn't be. I mean, maybe that's a fair comparison. Like, the idea of being able to dissect who is a Canadian and who's American and how would you defer. I mean, we'd like to think it would be easy to tell, but it probably wouldn't. I mean, like, everyone does the Canadian accent and all that stuff, but I don't think it would be that easy. I think it's probably very similar.
I don't know. That's a good question.
When you when you look at a Canadian, do you know you're looking at a Canadian? Like, I don't.
No, until you ask them, like, who has the puck, and they say the team is on offense, and then I'm like, oh, you're Canadian.
I don't even need them to say offense. Just the fact that they know which team is on offense would tell me that they're Canadian.
Oh, there's no offense in Canada.
It's only offense. Yeah.
Offense.
So I don't know. So that whole part has been really, really neat to me. Can you? I mean, imagine. I mean, if you're a mother, like, you're going, right? I mean, they have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I've bored you. I'll let you go.
All right. No, I mean, that was a little deeper than, I don't know,
what you were ready for.
We went from Love is Blind. We've been all over the map today.
We went from tuna tartar to Ukrainian prisoners of war.
I learned you something today. Now you'll be like, oh, steak tartar. There you go.
I don't think I could eat tartar. I like medium rare, but I think tartar would be.
But at least you know what it is. So the Jeopardy question. By the way, I was killing it at Jeopardy last night.
Were you?
The first round of Jeopardy, I was the man.
Just the right categories or what?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I need categories. One was the director's chair. It was about movies. Okay. It was just questions were falling into my wheelhouse. That's
okay.
I'll go. But I didn't stay for double Jeopardy because I would have probably got embarrassed. So I just kind of quit while I was ahead.
I would love to know how many people who have actually played Jeopardy, like, been there on the stage, and the categories come up, and they just, like, in their head, they're just thinking, like, crap. Like, they just know as soon as the categories go up, it's going to be a long. It's going to be a long.
When I'm watching with my kids and they are unveiling the categories, every time I'm like, baseball, baseball.
Right. You know what I'm really bad at?
They have found that to become annoying. I think it's funnier every time.
I'm really bad at the sounds like or starts with, because I get so, like, I just get so ingrained on that I almost ignore the question itself. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I those tend to be the ones where they narrow it down for you, and it should be easier. And instead, I become like blinders, and I just can't think outside of the question.
Yeah. I'm just good with, like, the American history, pop culture, sports. Outside of that, like opera, every opera question, I say Madam Butterfly.
Heather's calling your bluff. Mark says stage fright about people listening, but he played to sold out crowds every night of Wonderful Life at CTL. Just saying.
The crowd is dark and you can't really see him that well.
That's, you know what? That's a very valid point.
I will say this. One of the best things I learned about being on stage and talking is look at the wall. Don't make eye contact with anyone, because it does mess you up. And when we did have full shows, and, like, something would happen and you would see someone that you knew, but they had to be way down front because up at the top was darker. But it did, like, you're like, oh, they're here today. And then that is weird. That is very, very weird.
Can you imagine if you would have just said that after a line? Like, in the middle of It's a Wonderful Life? Oh,
like, I remember my friend's parents were there once. They were right in the front row. A girl I went to high school was in the front row once. And you're just like, oh, hey, what's up? So, yeah, that's odd.
Yeah. That one's different too, though, because it's so tight knit. Like it's very personal. It's a very personal space for a performance.
Yes.
Like you're almost on top of the performance.
I found one of the interesting things is after the show when the lights went up to look around in the crowd to see who was there. Because sometimes people told you beforehand they were going. But there was while you're doing the show, you really don't know who's there. And it's hard to see unless you look.
Yeah. Unless you're really trying.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to Weiss Markets for being our sponsor. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
See ya.
We won't see you tomorrow. All right. We'll see who's on. Thank you guys for listening. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. I will see you tomorrow.